Can we have a minute to change the tape?
I think I'm not, I'm sorry, I really find it out. First of all, thank you very much. I mean, I actually want to say that I actually had read the book.
Thank you.
And so I was curious to hear you here. Well, first of all, yes, the talk I really enjoyed. It's quite interesting, and I think I've got a whole lot of questions in mind which I'm not allowed to raise here in this small session. Yeah, but I just asked a few questions. First of all, that as you have have focused on humanity when you were to be thinking about peace and reconciliation, and you said that humanity is at heart. I was wondering, it's a slightly relevant to the question we have taken before, that how do we perceive humanity and which kind of framework we want to look at. For example, when you were talking about religion and people, I was wondering, I need to mention that I basically sort of finished and submitted and had my Bible and PhD called Gender and Armed Conflict. And I do teach in University of Wisconsin-Madison, and that's again gender, culture, religion, and all this stuff. So I was wondering if you are aware of this growing body of feminist literature which argues that there is an intersectionality between the axis, power axis, for example, gender, class, ethnicity, religion, and culture as well. And this, they hold from Cynthia Enloy to Cynthia Hoffman to Nida Yufal-Davis and Nadia, all of them have argued that religion itself should be seen as a power X, because in certain situations, which you also have narrated in your book, that Pakistan, this West Pakistan government was employing religion as a power tool against these Pakistani people. So I was wondering then, how would Quran, or when you were referring to Surah 4, would have actually defined this kind of conflict? Because can humanity be achieved without understanding the politics of the power? That's one question. And the question B, I mean, if I'm allowed, is about the book actually, because I thought I got you here so I can ask you a question.
You can ask any question. There's no reason no rule.
It could be answered. I can follow.
Actually, like one?
Yes, please.
So it's basically, when I was reading your book, I mean, I have written my bibliography for my PhD, so I was lucky because it just came out a month before my submission. So I was looking at your explanation and narration of the war and the contextualization. So I'll just read a very short excerpt which I found here very briefly about the book. You said, I mean, the book started, today's talk and the book's narration and the contextualization of the war seem to be slightly different to me. Because in the book, you begin the book saying that the war was fought between India and Pakistan. You said fought between India and what was then East and West Pakistan. The war of 1971 led to the creation of Bangladesh, where it is remembered as the War of Liberation. For India, the war represents a triumphant settling of scores with Pakistan. If the war is acknowledged in Pakistan, it is considered as an act of betrayal by the Bengalis. None of this nationalist histories convey the human cost of the war. Pakistani and Indian soldiers and Bengali militiamen led and tortured women as a mass escape. Basically, although it is a very short excerpt, but basically you have actually claimed a lot in it, I have to say. A, that you claim that the war was actually between India and what was then East and West Pakistan. Is that true? Because you're actually sort of mixing up, saying that the war was between India and East and West Pakistan. Wasn't it basically the war took between East Pakistan and West Pakistan and India supporting and sort of like privileging and facilitating the war on is this Pakistani side? B, the question, I felt like quite ignored because I'm from Bangladesh and my family had a very big history of war victimization and so on. And then I did the research, so I feel quite problematic in this particular point. And then B, I also found that you have actually sort of mixed up, and also what we did today as well, when you were talking about the crime and the rape by the soldiers and the militiamen, sort of like mixed up, because can we see the active soldier through the same lens that we would see a militiaman do? And if we do, then how do we define it from a theoretical perspective? And then obviously I have a question here. It's just for curiosity. How many women did you interview in Bangladesh? Because then we would understand whether we could mix up militiamen's attitude and soldiers' act. And third was quite really problematic to me when you say that, if the war is acknowledged in Pakistan, it is cast as an act of betrayal by the Bengalis. So in your talk today, and also I have to say that inside the book, I have noticed several times that in other chapters you have noted very clearly articulated that it was not just a betrayal by the Bengalis, but it was an act of rebellion towards the state, politics of repression and suppression to the enemies. So, I'm not really sure.
Okay. Lots of very wonderful questions and great engagement with the issues and very kind of take on my position that, you're creating problems here. Why are you going to apologize that you are building on these assumptions? Let me take the very small question. The small question is, how many people did you interview? This was not based on interviews. This was based on multiple conversations. I lived in Bangladesh for 1 year in the first time around, and then around 3 months for the second time, and I've been going back every year to Bangladesh. In fact, showing the there's so much conversation and so much was unrecorded that I could not use it because it was not recorded. The ones that were recorded, I had over 253 recordings of these interviews. And I would say of those, around 50 of them are really connected to the issue of victims' rape. Okay, so they are rape survivors. Others have talked about loss of, like as you said, very involved in the war, and have lost family members, sons, children, parents, whatever. It's a loss. It's an incredible loss. Another question, the smaller question that you ask, connected to that. So, how do women talk about it? It is in retrospectively that you can make these differences and say, oh, armed militia, different guys. Oh, the army, different guys. And as if the women who are getting raped are sitting and watching who's wearing what badge. There is no badge when men turn into criminals. Okay? And this kind of distinction to say that when, unfortunately, it doesn't matter what label you wear, whether you are a Punjabi or a Bengali or an Assamese or whoever you wear in that army, in the multiple armies and multiple armed militias that we are a part of, that involved in this heinous act of attacking women in their homes or in paddy fields or when they were going to schools and colleges, did not matter. Rape is rape. If you have met a person and if you have worked with a person who has suffered rape, it does not matter who did it. It is a complete disempowerment of a human being, and we need to acknowledge that and not make this difference and call it a theoretical argument. There is no theoretical argument when human beings destroy one another, particularly when men take the masculine pride to humiliate women through a power that they have. I will not make it a theoretical argument. For me, it's a humanistic concern. Okay? And so I don't buy this feminist logic. I will not buy feminist logic that somehow feminism is going to stand up for women. Humanism and humans must stand up for one another. And in this case, I do not use labels of Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Indians, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, whatever they are. The fear that women have about even speaking about these issues, you can imagine the level of trauma. The trauma that has not yet been processed. Only the ones who have processed this trauma are able to talk about it. For most people, it has gone into a realm of a complete disjuncture. And the rupture is so real that you cannot. So when we look at issues like labeling and distinguishing and demarcating, maybe we need to ask ourselves, if I was in those shoes, would I want someone to just give me a label or give me justice? Okay, and I'm coming from that. And I completely agree with, I take your point of view. You're an academic, I'm an academic. We talk about these issues in classrooms, we write about it. But this book, this research completely transformed me from the academic that I was to an academic that's willing to be lambasted for speaking about things that have very little resonance in the abstract world of academic work. I'm no longer, what I'm trying to say is this theoretical abstract knowledge is not the altar in which I bow my head. I bow my head to the humanistic world that I have found in the subcontinent. And in doing this research, I have got I've developed incredible respect for the people I have met and have lost a lot of respect for governments and states that we all need for passports to move around. But the big question that you asked,
Yes, but we're talking about peace, isn't it? Because today's talk is focused on rethinking peace. So when you talk about peace, don't we need to understand the policy? Because we know, I mean, in my research and also many other research before me, especially Insāniyat and your work, it was clearly seen that the state of West Pakistan has chosen rape as one of the strategy to humiliate the enemies. So that was not only an act of humiliation to individuals, just to women, but also an act to delude and weaken the Bengalis, so that the rape by the soldiers was actually very premeditated, which Hardt-Nickachos work very clearly showed. She did a PhD on it, and it looked like that way. Soldiers were not, because they were Muslim soldiers, they did not always feel comfortable going to rape and mass rape unnecessarily if they are not really sexually motivated. But this was the strategy, because if you rape the woman and make forcefully pregnant, and then the woman will give a part of a son or a daughter who will become a pure Muslim. That is what
I'm sorry, Romana, I don't know where people come up with this information. I do know Naini has worked. Let me just, give me a little moment. I'm a historian, I do archival research, and I go deep into the archives. I'm not just talking to people and getting this information. No army, I have also done this with American soldiers. I've given a lot of talks in American, veterans, to American veterans. Almost all soldiers will tell you that rape is a war strategy. It is used over and over again. It did not just happen in 71. The only time rape got accepted as war crime is after the case of Bosnia. Before that, it was not declared as war crime. It is not a new thing, but there are no memos, there are no directives. This kind of stuff that people say was premeditated, it was directed, and people were sent out. This is not available, so we cannot make up stories, and we just can't say that this is exactly what happened and this is how they did it. That it happened because we have the victims, we have the survivors, we have the women who can tell us the story. We do know it happened. How it happened, what is the process of its happening, how is it, is it a strategy that is so carefully manipulated, or is it something more than that armies work in a way to humiliate and transgress the rights of people who dare to question, is something that we need to make differences. We can't go from one to another and say this equals this and this equals this. It's bad research. And so we have to be very careful. We can't get into sloppy method, okay?